Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a great Thursday night. The end of the week is almost here. College football is right around the corner when it comes to this weekend. But hey, once again, we're actually here to have an enjoyable podcast when it comes to the Braves. Because once again, the Braves lose 3 in a row. Then they come back and they win 2 convincing games. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And as always, I'm joined by my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. And Stephen, I'll set you up in the best way that I can. You have been pleading with this lineup. If you're going to hit home runs, do it with runners in scoring position. And on Thursday, the Braves did that at a historic level. And I was happy to see it. Stephen Tolbert, good talking with you as always, sir. Take it away.
Yeah, what's up, Shawn? Yeah, it was good to see. We have not seen that a lot. We've seen a lot of homers from the Braves. We talked about that on our last show that the Braves are actually top 5 in the league in homers hit, but it's been a ton of solo homers, and part of that's been a twofold problem really. Part of that has been the fact that the Braves don't have a great on base percentage as a team, so they don't have a lot of opportunities to hit homers with runners on base. But also, when the Braves have had runners on lately, they have been at their worst offensively. And so those two things combined have just meant the Braves don't hit a lot of, multi-run homers. And today against Cincinnati, they had 4 3-run homers, which is historic. I saw the Braves note that it's like the first time in like 80 years or something like that somebody's done that. 4 3-run homers in a game is like crazy. That never happens. And I tweeted out a few minutes ago or about an hour ago, that in total before today's game, the Braves had 6 3-run homers in the entire second half. And they had 4 today. So, 3-run homers are a big deal. There was a stat a few years ago. I don't know. I haven't seen an updated one in a couple of years, but there was a stat a few years ago about how often a team who hits a 3-run homer wins a game. It's absurdly high. Those are usually back-breaking homers. So especially when you have good pitching, because you're playing a lot of low-scoring games, a 3-run homer is often the decider. So, yeah, it was huge. It was huge to see. It was huge to get 2 wins. I know Scott and Brad talked about the win last night, and so we're just going to cover this game. But, yeah, huge, huge games. The Mets have been winning. The Diamondbacks have been winning. So if nothing else, you keep pace. I know it's better if those teams lose and you actually gain ground, but sometimes they win too, and you just got to keep pace. And that's what the Braves did the last 2 nights. Really salvaged this after a really rough weekend and then beginning of this series. And now you go to Miami and you got a chance to continue it and hope that maybe the Philly or the Mets and the Diamondbacks drop a couple this weekend and you can start to gain ground again.
Absolutely. And of course, the Hammer Territory Podcast, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Make sure you check us out wherever you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube now. We've been on YouTube, but hey, you get to see our smiling faces a bit more often as well. Just want to make sure you know when and where to both subscribe and listen to Hammer Territory. But Stephen, you hit the point on the head. It's the fact that the Braves were able to bounce back. And hey, when the Braves have bounced back this year, I know that I've been a strong believer, advocate of how much they bounced back over the past 6 weeks. But this time around, the thing that stood out was the offense. And we'll get into that more in just a moment. But another thing that stood out is that you have to feel pretty good anytime Chris Sale is on the mound. And when you look at the stat line overall today for Chris Sale, yeah, it's kind of in line with what he had usually done, but it was also far away from his most impressive starts of the year. He certainly wasn't as dominant this time around as he was in the past. And Chris Sale talked about it a bit, because during the game, especially in that 4th and 5th inning, I think that there was a bit of collective concern among the Braves fan base, and that, it looked like that Chris Sale all of a sudden was throwing fastballs anywhere from 89 to 91 miles an hour. His slider was 75 miles an hour or slower. You see that type of velocity drop, that's a bit concerning. But some pointed out that, he had done that recently as well. And then Chris Sale and Brian Snitker himself, Chris Sale just was probably tired in this start. He's worked more innings than he has in quite a while to this point in the season. So he likely can still dial it up when he needs to, probably just, did not feel the need today. But overall, a pretty good performance from Chris Sale. But again, it's good to hear that it was more just him probably trying to conserve energy than real any injury concerns, from the drop in velocity.
Yeah, Sale's 35 years old. And like you said, he hasn't done this in a while where he's pitched. I mean, these guys have been pitching since February, and Sale hasn't been hurt at all year long. He hasn't been on the IL. He hasn't taken a break. The Braves gave him a couple of extra days rest in the first half here and there, but he's basically been pitching since February. And it's been so many years since he's had to do that. And now that we're here in late September, you know, he's going to get tired. And it was really good that the Braves scored so many runs today that he could just come out after the fifth inning. He was very clearly not very comfortable. It was very hot in Cincinnati. It was an early game. I'm sure he was tired. I'm sure it wasn't the most comfortable. It didn't look like he had, his like A1 command either. So I'm guessing there was some dialing back just to try to throw it where you're trying to throw it. But yeah, the big thing is after the game, there was no concern. It's not like there was any MRIs done or anything like that. It was just, yeah, he's a little tired. And that's gonna be normal. So the Braves were able to score so many runs that he can get out of there, and that helps a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's just another, it was a solid win. These easy, stress-free wins are just so few and far between with this team. They play so many low-scoring, close games, so many high-stress games that when you get a laugh or a blowout where, everybody's hitting homers and having fun, it does take you back to last year a little bit. But yeah, it was good to see. It was a really big win. I mean, obviously this time of year they're all big. The Braves are literally, they have zero margin for error from this point out, especially as good as the Mets are playing, as good as the Diamondbacks are playing. There is just no more margin. They don't have room to go through another lull where they lose three or four or five. Like that all of that is done with if they want to make the playoffs. So every win is a huge one. This one, after losing the first one, winning the last two, keeping pace. Now everything is still in front of you in terms of making the playoffs. So yeah, huge game. It's good that Chris is not hurt. Obviously, if Chris Sale gets hurt, then I'm not sure anything else really matters. So the fact that he was just conserving energy is obviously good, but seeing the offense explode was by far the best sign of the day because hopefully we might be getting Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Jorge Soler, Michael Harris. Like we might be getting all the Braves' best hitters hot at the same time, which legitimately has not happened one time this year. And if that could happen for the last 2 weeks of the season, that would be tremendous.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head for what I was going to bring up next was the fact that we've talked about at times this year. Whit Merrifield, Ramon Laureano, Gio Urshela has had some games as well. We've Orlando Arcia right after the All-Star break. We've talked about the fact that there have been times when unexpected sources have really been helpful to the Braves to try to give them these spurts of good offense through what's been a pretty down offensive year. But this time around, over the past two games, I think it's an even better scenario. Your expected sources of offense have really stepped up. Marcell Ozuna getting his power back. I think you have kept track of it. I believe that he hit his first home run on when he hit the first home run that he's hit Wednesday night. It was his first home run in like over 100 at bats, which was great to see. Matt Olson could probably put heat on Barry Bonds' 73 home run record for a single season if he played his home games in Cincinnati. He loves playing in Cincinnati's ballpark. Two more home runs on Thursday. But that's the big thing about it. And the good thing is, to me, is that, especially in the case of Matt Olson, this is normal. I mentioned it before. Matt Olson against quality teams since he's been in Atlanta has been one of the best hitters in the majors against winning teams. He consistently shows up in these big moments. And if he can let this allow for him to have a big weekend in Miami, and then you let that roll over to the series against New York, I'm going to be honest with you. The Mets may have Francisco Lindor, but if they do or they don't, the two best hitters in that series against the Mets easily could be Matt Olson and Marcell Ozuna if they're playing to their talent level. And it's good to see that right now they are. And when they do, that's the real key cog that allows our offense to not only be good, but be consistent as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times this year you and I have talked about this, but I've always found the key to the Braves offense is Matt Olson. Um, because he's left-handed, because he balances out the lineup, because he is such a unbelievably hot hitter when he gets going. Like he can just tear up the entire league for weeks at a time. And we haven't seen it a lot. And, I thought Brad and Scott did a good job kind of describing it last night, where, in a lot of ways, in the last 2 months, month and a half, Marcell Ozuna and Matt Olson have kind of switched spots. And, Matt Olson has kind of been carrying this lineup for about 4, 5, 6 weeks now, quite honestly. And yeah, when he does that, man, this lineup is just so much more dangerous. And now Marcel's going. Jorge Soler had a good series. Michael Harris had a really good series. Ramon Laureano has been unbelievable. And we're going to talk about him in a minute when it comes to some of the other stuff that's happening with the team. That's five. You add in the catchers, that's six. You get Ozzie back starting tomorrow. That's seven guys that can all, do damage and all going, we'll see what Ozzie looks like when he gets back, but that's what you need, especially when you don't have Acuna and Riley. Like you need your depth to work and you need your best hitters to be great. And Matt Olson is, I'll say it a million times, Matt Olson is the key to this lineup. And when he's going like this, when Marcel joins, when Soler joins, Michael Harris is having really good at bats, everything just works so much easier. So, just pray to God that this actually sticks for more than 3 or 4 days. When we were talking, I was on Twitter today, or X or whatever the hell it's called, but we were having fun. The fact that it was like a 15-3 game, and literally probably 20 people replied to one of my tweets with some version of, I can't wait to lose 2-1 tomorrow or something like that, because that's what this team has done. Like they score 15 and then they score one. And so we're just praying to God that this holds. They go to Miami against a really bad team and can continue this on into the Met series and then into the Royal series and then hopefully into October, which would be tremendous. But yeah, they gotta keep it going. They haven't been able to do that all year long. And this is the time because there's no other time for it. It's now or never. And that's what they need. They need to maintain this offensive explosion for another 2 or 3 weeks and see if they can do some damage, get into October and do some damage when they get there.
Absolutely. And putting the spotlight a bit on Michael Harris, he has, kind of settled into that leadoff spot. I know that, when Jorge Soler was out with his hamstring injury, we were thinking that Soler would come back. He would be the leadoff hitter. Austin Riley, obviously, before he went down, he was doing well in that two spot. But when Austin Riley went down with his wrist injury, Michael Harris was put into that leadoff spot. And you think, okay, that may make sense because of his speed, but his on base skills may not be the best fit out of that leadoff spot. But Michael Harris now has an 800 OPS in the month of September, 6 home runs in the month of September. That is double any other month in terms of home runs this season so far. Before September, his highest monthly total for home runs was 3. But the other big thing to me, Stephen, is that when he leads off the game, he coming into today had an 872 OPS. Leading off an inning, he has a 757 OPS. When Michael Harris's job is to deliver in either getting on base or getting a big hit, he's doing that, and he's doing that at a pretty good clip. And having him at the top of the order really does help stack this Braves lineup because, of course, you can use his speed. It's a nice left-handed option to be at the top of the order, but the power as well as just getting those timely hits, having that consistent source that can either get an extra base hit or get on base in front of your best hitters. That is something that our lineup has severely been lacking all season long. And for Michael Harris to step in that role with as talented as he is, that's a really good development for this lineup if it can continue.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword with Michael because if you look at the season he's had, it's been a disappointing season by the results. But if you look at the expected numbers, like if you look at his expected OBA and stuff like that, it's very much in line with what he's done the last couple of years. He's had a pretty big underperformance of his OBA relative to kind of his expected OBA. His batted ball profile is much stronger this year than his results have shown, which is of course a positive thing, right? Like we're just kind of dealing with the randomness of the batted ball and what happens when the ball hits the field or where the fielders are standing, how the wind's blowing, stuff like that. So that's the positive. That's the positive side of Michael is that his expected stats look great. He's really hit the ball well. His strikeouts have come down. He by process, he's had a pretty good season. The other side of the coin with Michael, however, is that as a leadoff option, he doesn't make a lot of sense as a leadoff option just because he is a slugging over on base percentage guy. Like he's always going to be a guy that, a lot like Ozzie, who is going to prefer to swing a lot, be aggressive, not walk a lot, hit a lot of homers, and not take a lot of walks. And because of that, he's always run a pretty low on base percentage. And so like if you're in an ideal scenario, Michael is never your leadoff option. Obviously, Ronald Acuna Jr. is a supreme leadoff hitter. But in this scenario, the Braves are obviously down quite a bit of talent because of injuries. You don't really have a standard leadoff hitter in your lineup to turn to. So yeah, they're just having to do make do with the best they have. And right now, Michael is probably the best they have. I will be interested to see where Ozzie hits when he comes back. But yeah, I mean, if Michael can hit homers and, get a hit here and there, I would love him to walk more. I'd love him to be slightly less aggressive with the swings and take more pitches and work more counts. But that's just not his profile right now. And you kind of live with what he is at the moment. And when he is hitting the home runs and he is getting the batted ball, the results to match the batted ball data, then he's a really good hitter. And I do want to mention that he really has, by the expected numbers, had a much better season than the results have shown. But even when he is going well, he's definitely not a traditional leadoff hitter just because he doesn't walk a lot. He doesn't run a high on base percentage. He's very much a slugging over OBP guy. So I want to give him his flowers for having a strong batted ball year, but I also do want to mention that he's not, that's not the guy you would traditionally want in your leadoff spot. But with the injuries the Braves have, they just, I mean, whatever they can get, that's what they take.
Well, and the other thing that I'll say is this that's kind of stood out is that, a few of his home runs in September, I think at least three of them have come off left-handers as well. So him
Yeah.
showing the power against left-handers is a really good development. So speaking of good developments, of course, Friday is going to bring with it. It was finally confirmed. Ozzie Albies will be returning to the lineup. I believe it was right before the All-Star break that he went out. He's been out 2+ months now with the wrist injury. May have been right after. It was right before we signed with Merrifield. But Ozzie Albies will be back in the lineup. And of course, the speculation that's been out there, the conversation that's been going on all week, well, then what's going to happen, with three other people? Basically Gio Urshela, Whit Merrifield, and Ramon Laureano. And I'm here to tell you, I know that we're going to go into several different discussions, but I'm just going to be plain as day. If you are talking about Ozzie Albies, Ramon Laureano, Gio Urshela, and Whit Merrifield, if you're talking about those four players right now, and you're going to pick out the player who is most valuable to this lineup, who without a shadow of a doubt out of that group of four should be playing every day, it's not Ozzie Albies. It's Ramon Laureano. And in my opinion, because of that truth, that kind of ends the debate. You put Ozzie at second, you put Whit at third, you put Laureano out in left field. Now, I know some may have different opinions for whatever reason and things like that, but you need to go with what's going to give you the most consistent offense. That's been Ramon Laureano out of those options, and I think that's where we stand. Stephen, what say you when it comes to how the Braves may line up, both in terms of how they'll be set up in the field and potentially also how they'll be set up in the lineup?
Yeah, this has been a very weird discussion and debate that's been happening for like the last week. I don't really even know why Ramon Laureano is in this discussion at all. Like, I don't know why we're talking about the outfield relative to to Whit Merrifield. The guy has a broken foot. You know, it's one thing to play second base, but you're going to run around in the outfield with a broken foot. Like, there's no like, I don't understand where that came from. I don't think there's any chance in hell that the Braves would put Whit Merrifield in left field, even if you set aside the fact that Ramon Laureano has been unbelievable since he's been with the Braves. Like, I mean, like a 140 WRC plus, unbelievable. That's right. Like, you can't take his bat out of the lineup, but just set that aside for a second. Even if that wasn't the case, even if he was just a league average bat since he's been with the Braves, you still wouldn't put Whit Merrifield in left field. He's got a broken foot. Like, this conversation has been very strange. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of strong opinions about a guy who's a 34-year-old, essentially utility player, bench piece. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, when Ozzie comes back, you put him at second. You leave Ramon Laureano in left. You don't even touch left field. I don't know why that's ever even in the discussion. And then when it comes to third base, whether you're going to put Gio Urshela or Whit Merrifield, it doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, they're both utility players. Like, I don't care which one plays. If Whit can play third base without screwing it up because he's got a broken foot, then put him out there. If he can't, then put Gio out there. It doesn't it The difference between Gio Urshela and Whit Merrifield over the next 9 games is so negligible. It's not even worth I mean, honestly, I don't care. The only thing I care about is that they don't take Ramon Laureano out of left, and that Ozzie is back in the lineup. Now, there's no chance that Ozzie's not going to be back in the lineup, of course, and I don't think there's any chance Ramon's coming out of the lineup. So, yeah, who my guess is Whit's going to play third. I don't know. Honestly, I might put Whit on the IL because again, he's got a broken foot. So, like, if Gio Urshela and Orlando Arcia have to handle the left side of the infield for the last 9 games, is that ideal? No, but it hasn't been ideal for 6 weeks now, and it is what it is. If they want to put Whit at third and put Gio on the bench, okay. I mean, I don't care. The difference between these two guys is negligible at best. Now, the only part of this conversation to me that is actually interesting and has some validity to have a discussion is whether or not you would put Gio Urshela at shortstop over Orlando Arcia, because Orlando is, listen, he's had a bad season, but he is going through a brutal stretch right now. I mean, it is like the at bats he's having are just like it's somehow getting worse and worse and worse. And Brad and Scott talked about this last night, but like somehow this guy finds himself in like the most critical at bat of every game. Even when he's batting like eighth or ninth, it doesn't matter. He's coming up to the plate with like 2 or 3 guys on every single time somehow. And he is wailing away and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So, like, the idea of having Whit and Urshela in the lineup over Arcia, I think probably deserves some merit. Urshela has played shortstop before. Not great and not a big sample. So, I'm not going to be surprised at all if they don't do that. My guess is starting tomorrow, Ozzie Albies will play second. Ramon Laureano will play left. Gio Urshela will play third, and Orlando Arcia will play short, and Whit's just going to be on the bench, or maybe even the IL, because again, he's got a broken foot. But like this conversation about putting Whit in the outfield for reasons passing understanding, he's a worse hitter than Laureano, he's a worse defender than Laureano, especially on a broken foot. It never made any sense to me. I don't know where it came from. I don't expect that at all. I expect a very simple Ozzie goes to second, and Whit either goes to the bench or Urshela goes to the bench.
And I do think that there is some merit to talk about Gio being at shortstop over Orlando Arcia. The reason why I think that, that's probably not going to go far is because I know Arcia is not an elite defender, but, I think it's fair to say that he, routinely or frequently makes the routine plays. And without, Austin Riley's improved defense at third, I think Brian Snicker just really values that. So that's probably.
He's a better defender at short than Urshela is,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah,
Yes,
like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's not a debate. The only debate is like if you look at their career numbers, like Gio Urshela's got like for his career, I think Gio Urshela's got like 100 WRC plus for his career, 99 or something like that. Where RC is in like the 70s. So that's the only debate is like, do you live with a slightly worse defense for better offense, right? And I'm guessing the Braves will still pick the defense over anything else just because you don't know how bad Urshela would be, and it could be disastrously bad. Although he has been very good defensively at third base. I do want to give him credit for that.
Yeah, but I mean, also if Orlando Arcia, and I agree, that's the thing that I was going to say when I was preparing for the podcast earlier today. This exact discussion. I agree that Orlando Arcia probably is overall not as good of an option in the lineup as Urshela is. But beyond the defense, he does wind up finding himself in these big moments. But I will give Arcia credit. There have been times this year, there have been times that he has delivered the big hit. You go back to the game last Saturday against the Dodgers. The problem is that he's been in that position so frequently that there's just been far too many times where he's had a horrible at bat versus getting the big hit. I would think if you had odds on which Brave is going to have a truly big hit this weekend, you could easily put the best odds on Arcia, but you could also easily put on him. He's the guy who's probably going to have the most bat at bats. So no, not really anything worth discussing. He's going to continue to play, but I do agree. If the Braves were to find themselves in a situation where he comes up in a big moment late in the game and you want to put Gio in there to hit for him, I wouldn't blame them at all. But
So,
overall, go
so,
ahead.
so real quick, I'm just going to give you a stat real quick. And to be fair, this is not my stat. Somebody sent me this. I don't remember who sent me, but there's been 161 qualified players in Major League Baseball. 161 qualified players in Major League Baseball this year. If you sort by WRC plus with runners in scoring position, do you know where Orlando Arcia ranks?
I'm going to guess last by a lot.
Last by a lot.
Yeah.
He's 161. He's got a 21 WRC plus this year with runners in scoring position. So, yeah, I mean, and again, he just somehow, regardless of where he gets put in the lineup, he somehow is always like the most critical at bat. I don't know how it happens. It's like the baseball gods just punching you in the like gut every day. Somehow this guy is the guy up in the spot. And again, 161 qualified players in Major League Baseball. Orlando ranks 161st in terms of production with runners in scoring position.
Absolutely. So, again, at the end of the day, the most likely scenario, Ozzie at second, Went at third, and then Ramon Laureano out at left field. You may see Gio get an at bat or two here. But the big thing is, just going with what you feel makes the most sense, the best overall player, that you're comfortable with at each position. But at the end of the day, there should be no discussion about Ramon Laureano being in the lineup. And I think that if there's any concern about Whit Merrifield, just simply to your point, put him on the bench or put Gio out there at third.
And by the way, I'll say this: Jared Kelenic got some starts against the Dodgers in left field. Like I think he started 2 of the 4 games. I don't think that should be happening either.
No.
I think
No.
Jared Kelenic should just be a bench player. Like you should not take Ramon Laureano out of the lineup for any reason.
Yeah.
Not only that, he should be batting like 5th.
Yes.
Like having him right behind Matt Olson right now is working fantastic. And I don't know why you would this is like if it ain't broke. I know Ramon Laureano's not actually this good. I get that, but we're not talking about a season worth of production that we need here. We're talking about 9 more games, and you got to ride the hot hand as long as it's hot.
Yeah. Yeah. So Laureano batting 5th after the 4 big hitters, probably the catcher in the 6th position. Ozzie in the 7th. You could switch Ozzie in the catcher, I think, just fine. And then Arcia and Whit, or Whit and Arcia, I think rounds out the lineup. But Stephen, the other thing that stands out about this weekend is that the Braves are playing good offense. But the big thing for them is that they're once again showing that they are capable of not only winning, but winning in pretty, easy fashion against teams they should be if their offense plays anywhere close to the level that it can. But the thing about it is that this weekend, the Braves have no choice but to keep it going. The Braves are going to be playing 3 games against the Marlins. The Diamondbacks, who are 2 games against the Braves, they're going to be playing 2 games against the Brewers in Milwaukee. The Mets are going to be playing 3 games against Philadelphia. And both the Brewers and Philadelphia still have something to play for when it comes to playoff positioning in the National League. The Braves, by far, have the easiest matchup, but they're also 2 games behind. You can't lose a game this weekend if you want to be in a favorable position. If you don't want to go into next week against the Mets, basically having to sweep the series to really have a true shot going into the last 3 games of the season to make the playoffs, you've got to sweep the Marlins this weekend, because more than likely you would have to hope that one of, or if not both, the Mets and Diamondbacks could lose 1 or 2 games this weekend. And if you sweep, you made up some ground. It's unfortunate the Braves are in this situation, but they're in a must-win situation this weekend. They've got to sweep the Marlins.
Yeah, they do not have any margin for error. I think if they won 2 out of 3, it's very dependent on honestly what the Mets do. If the Mets keep playing like they're playing, then yeah, even winning 2 out of 3 might not be enough. If the Phillies can give you anything, and I'll say this, the Phillies threw Taijuan Walker at the Mets tonight, and Taijuan Walker has probably been the worst pitcher in baseball this year. And obviously the Phillies aren't desperate for every win the way the Braves and the Mets are. So, that was why they did it. But for the next 3 games, the Mets actually have to face a real pitcher. They have Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, and Zach Wheeler the next 3 days. So if the Phillies can help you out a little bit, then I think you can. I think you could survive if you just win 2 of 3. I don't know that they necessarily have to sweep, but every win you do pick up against the Marlins is theoretically one you don't have to pick up against the Mets. The following week. You just got to stack wins at this point. And yes, it would be much easier just to sweep the Marlins. Um, but the Braves don't have Sale or Swellenbach going in this series. Obviously, those two guys just pitched the last 2 games. So you've got Max Fried, you got Charlie Morton, and you've got Grant Holmes are going to pitch in this series. It'll be interesting to see. It's gonna. I mean, I really do think it's going to come down to the offense. The offense, if they revert back to only scoring 1 or 2 runs, when you don't have Sale or Swellenbach going, it's going to be tough to ask, Charlie Morton or Grant Holmes to only give up, 1 run to win a game. So it's going to come down to the offense. And, you definitely, at the very least, you have to maintain the status quo as is now. If you do that, then you can at least convince yourself you can sweep the Mets or even win 2 out of 3. And at the very least, you win the tiebreaker in that scenario. So you've actually picked up kind of an extra game in that scenario, even if you don't sweep the Mets. But yeah, the Braves, I mean, they cannot lose the series. Obviously, they cannot lose the series to the Marlins. They need to, at the very least, it's got to be 2 out of 3. A sweep would be amazing, and it would also be amazing if the Phillies and the Brewers, or yeah, the Phillies and the Brewers could help the Braves out this weekend by, you know, taking care of the Diamondbacks and the Mets for at least a couple, 1 game, maybe 2 would be tremendous. And then, who knows? Once you get to that series next week, you could be in a situation where you could, come out of that series with a wild card spot locked up, if things break your way. So it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, the Braves got to win. There's just no more margin of error. They don't have any room to go through another lull of any sort. They got to win games. A sweep would be the absolute best. The offense needs to maintain this hot stretch. The Braves are going through kind of their 4 and 5 starters in the Marlins series with Morton and Holmes. So, keep scoring. 8, 9 runs never hurts.
And one other factor in all of this is that with you having Grant Holmes going, I believe he's going to go in the second game. You already know that that's going to be a heavy work day for your bullpen. If the Braves offense can continue to go, then that means that the Braves can manage their bullpen without having to use their top guys frequently in this series over the weekend against the Marlins, which should help them, regain, some freshness for, potential showdown with the Mets. So that's another big benefit. Again, this is common sense stuff. This is about as obvious as it gets. If your offense is going, it just allows for so much more flexibility when it comes to your pitching staff. And I'm not saying rest starters or rest your bullpen guys with how important each one is. I'm just saying that if the offense is doing its job, then you've got the ability to be able to, not have to, stretch out your starters or, use your best guys day in and day out. And if the offense can continue to thrive well, that just gets more and more of a groove going for you to be able to hopefully have it carry over to that Mets series next week. Steven, do you have anything else with us as far as this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast goes, heading into a big, big weekend? Plenty, obviously, to watch for, but anything in particular you're going to watch for in this Marlins series?
Yeah, it's all about the offense. I mean, Matt Olson, Michael Harris, obviously Ozzie's coming back tomorrow. So, and he's going to bat exclusively right-handed from all reports. And, I looked at the Marlins roster. They actually don't have a ton of lefties at the moment. At one point this year, they had a bunch of lefties, but they actually don't at the moment. So I'm guessing Ozzie's going to see a lot of right-handed pitching. And that's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm curious to see where they put Ozzie in the lineup. Quite honestly, are they going to kind of upset the top of the order with Michael kind of getting hot? Are they going to stick him in the middle? Or are they going to stick him near the back? I'm very curious to see what they do with Ozzie starting tomorrow. Obviously, we're going to have to see what the lineup looks like with Whit Merrifield or Gio Urshela, Orlando Arcia, who the corresponding move is. I'm guessing Kevin Biggio is about to get DFA'd, but we'll see about that. But yeah, the offense, man, the offense has got to keep it going because you're not going to just give up 1 or 2 runs every night. There's going to be games where you got to win, 6-3 or 7-4 or something like that. And the offense just the offense hasn't done it all year consistently. And this would be the best time for them to find a consistent, powerful offense for the last 9 games and give this team the best chance to make the playoffs.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. And, it looks like that the Braves are having a bit more fun, out there today. This team knows what they're capable of. This team knows that despite records, despite performance this year in matchups against several of the better teams in the National League, this Braves team still can not only be competitive, but also can have the advantage in some areas. They want the chance, especially with how many of the older guys have had career years or near career years this year. Hopefully each and every one of them will step up and we'll be able to deliver and get at least a series win, but hopefully a sweep this weekend. Of course, for Stephen Tolbert, my name's Shawn Coleman. You can find Stephen at B_outliers on Twitter/X. My name's Shawn Coleman. Again, you can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter/X. You can find Hammer Territory across all forms of social media and on YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to or watch us, and that will make sure that we obviously are available to as many to enjoy when it comes to our coverage of the Braves. And of course, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. For Stephen Tolbert, my name's Shawn Coleman. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory Podcast. Go Braves.